Morning, everybody. It's David here on Sunday morning, and I was going to go outside, but it's like 30-some degrees out there, and I still want to do some plein air painting, but I also want to do this in my studio, so I decided to stay in the studio this morning. I really want to check out my new toys, my new easels for plein air painting, but again, I'm not sure if it was going to rain today, and it is still cold. And so, I mean, I don't mind rain. I love going out in the rain, but I just don't like the low temperatures for watercolor anyways. So today I thought I'll show you guys a little bit about doing this Violinist. I'm doing that whole entertainer series, and so I thought I'd just practice on this one. And I want to kind of show you what I'm thinking and when I do my paintings and what I think about when I'm working my compositions and value studies. And so one of the things I think about is black and white, and so as in my classes I always teach that I look at the object and I take away the color by squinting my eyes, or take off your glasses and make it blurry and squint your eyes, and then look at the scene and see the black and white of it, and not even middle tones, because like I always say, middle tones can go either to the light or the dark. And so these middle tones, like in this, let me just show you right here. See the middle tones on his face and this flesh tone are kind of middle tones. And even the violin is a middle tone. But I'm seeing this over here is what I see when I look and squint my eyes, and I look at that for my composition. And if the light and dark are very simplified in like large areas, then it's fine, and look at it if it's weighed right and if it has some tangents in it. Figure all that stuff out from the black and white. And again, the middle tones are there, and we can make them either into light area or dark area. I will probably take this little, looks like there's somebody next to her, this shoulder here. I don't think that looks good to have that white, and so I'll probably tone that down, because I don't think that looks really nice to have that white there. And so you can either do that in a sketch, and I do this in my head, and I've been working as an illustrator for so many years that I can do a lot of this stuff out of my head. I can picture it, and then I just put the image in my head, and then I just say, okay, that's going to be darker, the face, and there'll be warmth, and the center of interest is basically this whole area here. The face is usually the center of interest, on a thing like this, but also the violin is also here. And so it's going to be a great composition. And then I want to make it not like the photograph, and so the colors are kind of just basically, just ordinary. And so what I want to kind of do is wild it up a little bit, make it a little bit more abstract, and make the background, I don't care what's in the background, I'm not even going to look back there, what's back there. I'm just going to maybe a stencil, maybe I'll throw some color in there, and make it more like she's playing. I want it to be a lot of blurriness. I want her hand not to be stiff. I want her hand to look like it is actually playing. And so to have a shot where it's frozen, I want to kind of give the impression that she's playing. And so sometimes that can be like the blurriness of the wand, or things that are just spattered on it. And also for her lace in her dress, I'm going to use, I decided to use a stencil for that, and I can just rub that out, so I don't have to worry so much about masking fluid or anything like that. The wand could be kind of masked out, but I'm just going to rub it out afterwards probably. And so I'm just going to do this one a little bit different. I'm going to try testing a little bit of looseness on this one. I'm going to try to do a little bit of like spattering, and so we're just going to, this is a practice for me. This is Sunday morning is usually my time to practice for like my other regular studio paintings, when I'm in the studio by myself and not filming. And so I'm just going to, this is a practicing, and I'm going to try different things, and they may not work. I don't even know. So I don't want to make it look like a photograph. I want to advance my painting skills by just practicing. And you have to do that. And this week, I told that in my studios, in my classes, that, to get better, you just have to do a lot. And just practice. Really, that's so important. We can all get there if you just keep on working at it. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's a good thing. Make a lot of mistakes and go on from there. So let's go to our tabletop and get started here. And I know it's early this morning, and a lot of times it's earlier than I normally do these, and so there's probably nobody watching, but you'll be able to see it after. I always leave all these up there for anybody to see and watch at their own leisure. And if you want to paint it, go ahead. There's the picture on the screen. Download it from there. And this is not a paint along like I do on Thursday nights. For my Thursday night paint alongs are definitely paint alongs. So here I have it drawn up, and no masking fluid. I'm just gonna practice, and I may even put thicker paint on. I may put some gouache on, or even acrylic, I don't know. We're just gonna have fun with this one. So let's get started here. Let me just glove on. I'm not wearing gloves lately. I just gotten so used to wearing gloves. People always ask me, why do you wear gloves? I like getting in there and rubbing it, and it also looks better on film, so that you can see, having the contrast actually works really well. I'll just put it on one hand this time though. So let's go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with the lights. Always when watercolor, you start out with your light areas. And so the light areas was like let me just go back one step here. So where are my lights? These are my lights, right? My lights are the flesh, the violin, and so those are all be put in, and then by putting your darks in, then you create the shapes later. And so always in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, just get my lights in there. So let's go back to our tabletop. And if you have any questions, I know there's probably nobody watching, but if you are, and you do have a question, please just ask away. I'll look up every once in a while to see if there's anybody chatting. And so let me wet the light areas. And I will just wet, I'm going to start on the bottom here, because the face, when I wet the face, I do want to kind of get some of the darks in there, the soft edges in there right away. And it's a little bit more difficult when you're doing a face, because I like to get that completed and not have it so, let's just go, I'll show you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet a lot of the area. And I didn't clean out my palette, so this is from Thursday, so we have a little bit of underwater. We did the fish underwater, so we got a little bit of underwater colors left. So here we go, some pinks, and we're just going to float them in there. And like I said, I want this to be loose. I want it to feel like she is actually playing. I don't want him having a stiff, high resolution, high definition kind of look to this piece. I want to try to give it a really loose, like she's actually playing the violin. And also some nice colors, and they'll dry nice and, they'll dry beautifully actually. So I'm just going to go in here. And I will use, a lot of these pictures I see when you're doing like Violinist, and there are a lot of black and just not much color. When you go to like a symphony and see, there's not much color in this. They were all wearing black, and the violins and things that are shiny, that's like the only thing that's kind of neat is the shininess. But there's a lot of dark and flesh tones. And so it's not like a rock star thing where you have lights blaring that are red and green, and so. But I'm gonna make it that though. I'm just gonna see if I can't bring it to that a little bit. And so I'm not gonna be afraid to maybe put some other colors in there that I'm using. Hey Maria, good morning. I won't be able to stick around for too long, but got notified you were live and wanted to watch at least a little bit. Yeah, I actually started a little bit early today because I'm gonna take my dad out to lunch, and then I was gonna go outside, and but I thought I'd just hurry up and do this and get my dad and take him to lunch. We're gonna have a little lunch with the father-son day today, so this will be kind of fun. So I thought I'd just get this out of the way, and I was gonna go out plein air painting though. Everything's already coming in too fast, and so I thought, well, I'm just gonna do this real quickly and practice a little bit, and then I'll get outside and head to lunch. And so see how I'm not worrying about edges, I'm worrying about getting neat light colors in there that are going to look good and going to be, there's her arm, and I'm making this light. There's kind of flesh tones in there, there's flesh tones, but it's not so much that I have to get exactly the flesh tones that are in the picture. I want to make it, kind of fun. I want to make it a little bit more fun than it is. It's very, just that's the way most of the symphonies are. But like I said before, I want to up it a little bit. I want to make it a little bit more wild, a little bit more abstractish, new word. But I'm just going to go in here and just go right into the violin. And the violin is very shiny, and so a lot of times, even though the color is like a wood color, yellowish, beige, that doesn't mean you have to do it. So if there's a light that I'm going to make that's a little, let's say there's a little bit more blue or something, seems like I'm going kind of with a flesh tone. The flesh tones are kind of orangey pink, and so I can go with a dark color, maybe even a little bit of blue, like a grayish blue, and put a little bit of that in there, and sides that's a little bit darker. And then the violin, what should we make it a little bit more earth tone like? That's okay, we can do it like a bit of orange in there. And I know this looks really dark, but there's a lot of water in here, and it will lighten up. Because these are still my lights. I'm not doing my darks yet. I'm doing my lights. I like this pink I've got going through here. You notice how I'm not worrying about the shape of the violin. I'm worrying about the area. I'm worrying about the look of the wash. I want the wash to look beautiful. Let me just get, there's a little bit of shadow. I'm going to even try to get the shadows in there right away. Like the shadow underneath here, there's a little shadow. And I'm not worrying about this, the stat or the bow. I'm gonna rub that out later. I'm not worrying about it one bit. I want to get a little bit of a shadow right here on the arm, get it soft edged a little bit. I know it's hard edges in the picture, but I don't want it to be that hard edged, and so here's a little bit of darkness through here. Get a little bit of color in there. Same thing again with her hand. I'm trying to work it while it's wet, and so I can get the soft edges going. And everything around here is going to be dark, right? And so I don't have to worry about that. Don't worry about that part. Worry about the lights. That's all you need to worry about right now, is the lights. And like if you do want to get a shadow like this, there's a little shadow right here on this along the face here. It's going to be a dark, the chin piece on the violin right here. I'm just going to go right over that, not worry about that. You notice how I'm going to stay away from the face, because that is a little bit more important. I can put it in there, but I'm not ready yet. I need to work on this violin a little bit more. Get a little light going through here. I can pick out, take in. And then we're going to go in here. And let's make this edge of the violin a little bit lighter. Put a little bit of pink in there. A little maybe a little violet, a pinkish lilac. Maybe a little lilac in here. So I got a lot of reds too. That means I'm going to have to use a little bit of like a greenish color for complements, or more blue, more grayish blue. I'm going to definitely be using some blues and stuff and some grays when it comes to the darks. Alright, so now the face. Now the face I want to work on pretty quickly, and I'm going to wet it. Getting the light color down first. The light wash. And don't feel like it is that much more special than everything else. That's one thing I see people, students take, and when they get to the face, they slow down. They make it so much more, they make it so different from the way they're painting other parts. And you can't do that. You have to make it all look like the same kind of technique that you're using through everything. And so I put down the water, get my soft edges. Now I do slow down a little bit so I can do more of the drawing. The drawing is a little bit more important because you can't be off. Like, you know, well, you can't really be off on the arms too or the thing, but the face is especially vulnerable to making it look weird if you're getting a little bit too off on the drawing. And so I'm going to go in here now and get some of the shadowing on the face. And see that her whole forehead is kind of in the shadow, and there's like little lines going through here. And you gotta also remember how much it's going to bleed. How much is it going to bleed? How much is it going to lighten? How much pigment did you use? That's where practice comes in handy. The more you practice, and I've been noticing a lot of you have been doing really well with that, and so keep on practicing. Keep on practicing. And the thicker the amount of paint, the less it's going to bleed when you're working wet into wet. You get to work nice and wet into wet. So I know how much paint to put on my brush. I rub it off on my paper, on my towel down here. I pick up pure pigment because I already have water on here, so I can make it pretty dark by using a lot of paint. I kind of apply it to the tape or to the palette here so I can see how dark it's going to get and how thick I have it on my brush. And now I am slowing down because I do want to get the shadowing right. Okay, there's a shadow across her face here. And I do want to get this now. I don't want to get this later, because if I get it later, then it's going to look too overworked. The best is when you can get things down in one shot. And that's one of the reasons I do paint so fast, is people go, oh my God, you painted so fast, I really can't paint that fast. Well, it's not about how fast you paint. Like, you can do this, slower, just make sure it keeps on staying wet, and just work it. Work the wash. And I mean, you could, like, let's say I let this dry, and I could re-wet this whole area and just keep on working on top. So you can do that too. It's not a problem, but you have to just work in stages then, and get things dry and then let them dry, re-wet them, get your go back in when it's wet again, and then re-wet. I kind of like to try to get as much as I've done on the first wash as I can to make it look fresh. So see how I'm kind of going in there? A little bit darker. And my brush is dry. My brush is pretty dry. There's not much water in my brush because I want to have nice amounts of pigment in there. And there's water on the surface already, so I can just go in real quickly, get those hard edges. They're all going to be soft because it's wet, but I can control it a little bit better if there's a lot of pigment in my brush. The top of her lip is going to be a little bit darker, right? It's going to be a little bit darker. Have your drawing done right. That's so very important to have your drawing done well. And then get a little bit grayer on the chin so it doesn't push forward so much. Now it's starting to dry a little bit, so I got to get in there with a little bit of water. And see how if it's the perfect amount of water, you can actually blend. I can blend in here. A little bit darker in her eye. It is working fast, but that's what you need to practice. You need to practice on putting it in, seeing how wet you need to have things, and how long you can keep them wet, and all that stuff is all practice. Now here, I stopped there because I lost all the wetness now up here, and I lost the shine. So do not go back in there. Just leave that alone. Leave it alone, and just kind of go down here where it's still wet. Lip here, eyelash. She has some eyelash shadows from her eyelashes, and then we get really dark down here, but I can do that later. I can bring that in later. Here I'm going to bring in a little bit of dark in her chin. Not the darkest dark yet, but on her neck she's got some shadowing from her hair also. There's a bunch of shadows from her neck, from her chin, and then there's some from her hair. So I'm going to put that in first before I put in the darks. The darker will come later. That'll be fine. And this is just being able to draw, and how do you learn how to draw? Is practice. This is one thing I cannot teach you. I can teach you, but you just have to do a lot of drawing. That's how I learned. I mean, for months and months I would practice drawing from my imagination, always looking, and I'm still going to bring out that book that I'm putting out there. I'm still going to do that. It's like a practice book where you practice how to sketch from your imagination. So you look at the object, but you don't look at it when you're drawing it. It's all about taking in your imagination, and then taking that in and then drawing from your imagination. that's what that book is going to be, or the sketchbook, and it just needs to be, I need to take the photographs and it'll be fine. It'll be out there. Alright, so this is pretty much, okay, let's just keep that for there right now. And those are my lights, right? I mean, that's pretty much my light areas. And so once you get your light areas done with all the lights, then you go to your large middle. The second step is always the large middle tones and darks. Which does that mean? It means just what it said. It's all these. Actually, I gotta put some flesh tones down here. This is gonna be her dress, and it's gonna have like lace. You can see her chest a little bit through the through the lace. Excuse me. Cheers, everybody. My coffee this morning. So we're gonna do some lace here, and but we're gonna do it with a stencil. And so that I've got to get that color of her flesh tone in here, and then later on it'll go back to the flesh tone when I put a dark over it. But then I'm going to take the stencil and get it back. And so there's her neck, and it's light. All right, so let's go to the darks, and it's going to be our middle tones first, basically, because our middle tones are going to be darker than the lights, but they are going to be part of the dark area. So when I say middle tone, large areas like this whole area up here, and I'm not putting it in her shoulder of the other girl right back there, and so this will all be darker than the lights. And very simple, and this is where you kind of think, how am I going to make this wash look cool? You know, what am I going to do to make this wash look a little bit different from anything else? Hey, Molly. Thanks so much. From the colored pencil. Yeah, I don't use colored pencil in this, but hopefully, Hopine is making some, they're hopefully making some watercolor pencils, which I'm really excited about. And I'm kind of hoping that they make them without wood. Like, I hope they're like woodless pencils, because I would love to use it like a watercolor stick, you know, and the pencil. So again, also, this is my light areas, right? This is all my light. So I noticed a lot of students always look and critique their work at this point and go, oh, it's not looking right, the drawing doesn't look weird, or something looks weird about it. Well, don't even critique it yet. You just put your lights in, and it shouldn't look like anything, really. I mean, you don't look at the arms and look at the face, because there's still 2 more washes to do on this, and the darks are what creates the shapes anyway. So the darks will create like the chin better, because I'll put the chin thing on there, and I'll put the little darks in here so that the violin will be coming out. And I'm also stalling here a little bit so that these washes can dry a little bit. And I'm going to go for the background here, and I'm going to, let's see what kind of wash I can put in there. I've been thinking about this all day yesterday, about how I'm going to do this background. Like, what do I want to do? Do I want to put a stencil in there? Do I just want to make it a really abstract and kind of spatter in there? So I'm wetting it. I'm going to wet it. And again, I'm not doing anything with the bow. I'm going to leave that alone, because I want to pull that out afterwards. So I'm going to go up to the edge of the violin, and then I'm just going to put a neat wash in here. And I want to, since this is so colorful, I'm going to make this not so colorful. I'm going to try to make it kind of bland, actually, so that the colors pop out. And so I'm going to use some, even some of this, I've got some pigment that is very pigmented. I should have put new on there, because it's not like Holbein paint that stays nice and wet. So I'm just going to get in here, not worry about her hair yet. It's a little bit too colorful blue, and so I'm going to put some other colors in there. Some warmth and some cools. I want things to float. I want it to look very dark. Again, I'm not putting in the arm of the other lady that seemed like she was there. And that's part of the composition. You don't want to, I don't want to make it look like, you know, something is happening there. I don't need a light there. I don't need to explain that there's a person right there. I'm going to go right over the bow. Now I want the bow to feel like it's moving, and so I'm taking it and giving it a little bit of a not so clean. It's not going to be so clean. I want it to be like when something's moving, it's blurry, right? And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to make it kind of blurry. And it's wet. It's wet. I wet it first, and so now I'm going in there and just putting down pigment and letting it float. And then she's actually got hair right there, so why don't we put some hair? And I always make everybody, all my people have red hair. This is my thing. So she will have red hair. Redheads, they're like all redheads. So I'm gonna put some bright red in there. Go around the. A lot of people notice that I a lot of times use this brush for almost the whole painting, which I almost do. I really do, because this painting, or this brush, is basically every brush I have in here. All these brushes, I can make this brush work like every one of these brushes. How? Because it's like, if I turn it sideways, it's like a round, right? And if I go like this, it's like a round, so you can't even tell. See, it looks like a round. So I can use it like that, like a round brush. I can use it on a point, because it's very sharp. I can use like a rigger, and I can do little lines. You know, I can do real thin lines, like a rigger. So this basically is every brush. It just happens to be very big. It's actually the first brush I had them make, and I told them not to cut the top flat. I like it really sharp. See how sharp that brush is? And so it almost can cut you. That's how sharp it is. No, not really, but I mean, just pretend. So here we're going to do little lines in there. And this is where you would put like maybe some different techniques and stuff. Like you want to throw salt in there, or put your fingers in there, make little dots, or whatever you want to do. It's basically how do you make the wash look interesting and kind of fun. You could spatter it, spatter some red, and maybe it's like lighting. Ooh, not on her face. Shoot, now she's got freckles. Well, that's another thing I like throwing. I like freckles. So we're gonna do little dots here. Again, I want to make it look, just interesting. I want to make it look very interesting and fun and moving, like she's just really getting into her work, really getting into this music. We don't know what she's playing, but I'm dying to have a show. I'm doing all this entertainment stuff. I'm dying to have a show where there'd be bands there and dancers and actors and just hanging around and playing music, and that's the kind of fun thing I love about entertainers. They just entertain you, And I was going to do a show with all comedy and laughter, but I'm not quite sure yet how to do that. So we'll get into that some other day. So now let's go into her hair is kind of light over on this side. So I'm just going to kind of take it over and then put some more lighter color in here. That's dry right now, and so I'm just going to throw her hair down this way. And this is my middle tones. I'm not getting into my darkest dark yet. My detailed darks come next. This is my large area of middle tones. I'll throw some small hairs going through there and stuff, and make her dark hair go in that area. Here we get a little bit of dark. I'm dying to put this reflection in there, but just wait. You always want to do things to make it look good right then. Don't take the urge, let it be. You can go in there later, get the small stuff. The painting does not have to look good the whole way through. It can look good at the end. That's when you want it to look good. Don't worry about it in the beginning. It doesn't matter what it looks like right now. We still have a lot to do too. We still have to make all the darks, the big mediums and darks. So right here now is going to be her dress, which is going to be laced. And so I'm going to use a stencil for that. I could kind of go like this and make it kind of looks kind of like lace, but I'm going to take make it really dark and just let it be lace later. Boy, I've never had that reflection where the light's in the wrong spot. Huh. I must have moved my light or something. Now let's Get some more violets in here. Get some blue, black, make it nice and dark. This hasn't happened to me for a while. I must have done something with my lighting arrangement because it's getting reflections. Alright, now let's go over the top of her hand, and I'm going to not make it totally straight because what I want to do is I want to go back in and again make it look like it's moving. And so if I can keep it soft edged and make it just look like it's moving, that would be better. Hey Molly, yeah, I could do that in Naperville. Just email me offline, you know, or email me online, and just I'll get back to you on that. All right, then we go right through here. Again, you notice how I'm not worrying about the bow, right? That's gonna come later. I can do that easily later. Bring this down. Some warmth in there too. And then it looks like the shadow goes right into her arm right here. And a dark background dress. So with a little bit smaller brush so I can control the line a little bit easier down here. I switch brushes when I feel I can make a different brush is going to be easier to use. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you do. You go with the brush that best fits the purpose of what you're painting. So now here we got the shadowing going across here. That's the shadow of the violin. And then the dark part of the violin I'm going to make kind of colorful. This is the dark part right here. It's in the side. And so is this right here. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of orange. And one thing I've noticed mostly about beginners is they definitely don't use enough paint. It's one of the things I'm going to be talking about in this week's newsletter about aha moments. When you get a moment and you're all of a sudden you get something and it's like, oh, now I understand. Now I know how to do that. And that takes a lot of practice, but it's all going to be about talking a little bit about my aha moments as a teacher also, where when I finally figure out a way of teaching you better how to do certain things. And that happens a lot when it comes to teaching and you as an artist and you're practicing. You get these aha moments that are just, you get to the next level. So we're always looking for those aha moments and then seeing what we can do and how we're getting better. And you may think you're getting better, and yes, you are getting better, but there's always time for improvement on everything. It doesn't matter how good you are, you can always get aha moments. It doesn't matter. I always get them once now and then. So it's and how do you get them? Again, it's a lot of work. It's just working and doing a lot of work. All right, now let's get some darks down here. I'm worrying about the arm here that's too harsh edged, and so what I can do is I'll wait a little bit and then I'll go into the edge and soften that edge because I don't want all these edges too hard either. I love movement in my work and I like to see it like it's moving. And so having a hard edge doesn't make it look like it's moving. It looks too hard then, basically. But what I have to do is I just have to wait a little bit and then I'll just put water across it and get it back to like more of a, here, watch this. So here it's get a little bit drier, and so I'm going to take in some color here, a little bit of pink. Just going to bring that into there and let that bleed into the bottom of her arm. It's going to be a soft edge. It's going to be an edge, but it'll be soft. And then I can throw those little shadows across here. Just take any color. It doesn't really matter. It's just a darker color. Take the darks from your palette because they're there for a reason. Those are all the colors you've been mixing. So I can just throw that across there real quickly. Maybe I'll even do. So she has a big muscle there, doesn't it? Maybe put a little bit right there. That's a better shadow. Now I'll go back in here, maybe get a little bit darker. So you can always go darker, right? You can always go darker, and you can put little hits of color in there, and let things flow while it's still wet. Do this while it's wet, so you get those soft edges. And do I have to know what's down here? No, it's out of focus. It's out of focus. I don't need to know what's down there. I just need to make this dark and nice soft edge on the arm. Here I'll go around her hand, around the bow. This is all wet down here, and so I can get a lot of different things happening in there without having to worry about what it is that I'm doing down there. I mean, do you want people to look down there? No, and so I want to bring back to my light areas. Remember the light source I was talking about? Like how this stuff is all light now? Remember when I first put it down, it looked kind of dark, right? But now because you're putting all these darks in there, it looks nice and light. And look at how colorful it looks now with all these other dark colors. And the dark colors are also colorful. You know, that's okay. You can make them colorful too. Your dress there. Now the bottom here. This is dry, so I'm getting a hard edge there at first. I always get the hard edges first, and then you can wet them afterwards to make them soft. I'm going to leave a little bit of the bow right here exposed just so I don't have to put a masking fluid there or keep that light. And we're going to take a little bit of red down here. Get that soft edge on her arm again, on her hand. Again, I want to keep her hand soft edge so that it looks like it's moving. I want it to look like it's moving. It doesn't have to look perfect if it's soft edge because it's moving. It's out of focus. And that's what I want it to feel. I want to feel that she is moving. I don't want it to look like she's stiff. And you know that's what you get if you make it hyper realistic because everything's really tight. Like the photograph is it's a stop motion, right? It stopped it at that moment, and I don't want that look. I want it to look like she's moving. The impression that she is playing the instrument without actually moving, and that would be to let things be out of focus a little bit. And it's harder to do than if I'm gonna just let it look like the photograph. I mean, if you want it to look like a photograph, just copy it. That's good. And a lot of people do that. And there's no problem with that. I want to try to make it look like it's a movement in the instrument. That's just the way I want to, that's what I'm practicing. I mean, I could easily go in there and do everything really tight and make it look just like each piece of the photograph. But I'm trying to learn how to make it look like the person's actually in motion and actually moving and make it look real and nice still, but not stiff. You know, I'm always working on something to try things and stuff, and that's why you practice like this. You practice to make things and look different from I don't want it to look like a master's work. I mean, it's been done. I want to try to see if there's some kind of way I can make watercolor look that's different from everybody else. I mean, that's what artists kind of are trying to do, I think, is get your own style, trying to make it look like a certain way. And so that's my goal, is to just keep on working and trying to capture a style. Now, when I'm teaching, a lot of times I don't show that because I'm teaching. And when I'm teaching something, I'm teaching you basically fundamentals, and so that has to be the first order, is that I'm teaching you a certain way of painting. So a lot of times you'll see different subject matter, different ways I'm painting, and so you don't really see a style as you see more of a lesson. The lesson is a certain something that I'm trying to teach you, and so a lot of times people say, well, what's your style? And I don't really feel like I have a particular style. I think it's more of a subject matter I've been doing lately. Like I've been doing all these entertainers, and before that I was doing the military scenes and stuff, and so and done in many different styles and different mediums too. I like acrylic, I like watercolor. I'm even trying to do some oils now. I'm gonna try some oils when I get out there. Water-based oils, but still oils, and so we're gonna see how that works together with watercolor techniques. All right, and so now I'm getting my detailed darks, right? My big detailed darks. I'm kind of going in now and capturing a little bit more of the detailed dark areas. I'm going to give the violin a little bit of a color lift here. I'm going to kind of go in here and just kind of give it that edge that this violin has. See how it has a little rim? And so I'm just going to take and give it a little rim. I got to watch out here. I just wet that, so that's not a good thing to have. That I wet it. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker right here, and then just blend it into the background by putting a little wet wash right there. See, you can re-wet watercolors, and I don't understand when people think that they can ever change things or do things differently on watercolor, but you totally can, as long as you wet it and then you use clear water to just wet over it. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen when I go like this across that, except when you do a little drop like that. That's not good, because then you're going to get a, okay. So see, when you make droplets, that's a different story. But when you go here, I can just wet the area, and it will look fine. You can go over areas, is what I'm saying. You can go over and over and over, as long as you wet it, and if you use clear water and you wet an area, nothing's going to happen to it until you put more pigment in there, or you put a droplet and it takes away the stuff underneath. But a nice easy brush work like this here, like this light, I'm just going to soften that edge, and I'm just going to go in there with the water. And so this area right there, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to take and wet those two areas together to make it a soft edge. You can even rub out. A lot of artists, like I know, that rub out. They rub out an area. So.
Oh my God, David.
Shh. So so what I'm doing here now is that I'll do the dark right here, and so I'm going to put this shadow here, and so I will put this on. All right, that's the shadow of the chin. I come down here, and again, I don't do my darks yet. I'm going to take my dad out, so I'm taking Opa out. I'm going to take him out at lunch.
David, can you put a line in and feed some food in the...
Sure.
I put it already in the garage. You can take my car.
Okay.
I leave it on the counter, okay?
Yep.
The key.
Mom just came in, and they're going... Mom's going to go going to Elgin to take her dolls to get, what do you call it? See how much they're worth. Basically, there's a thing in Elgin for old-time dolls, and they're going to see how much their dolls are worth. And then in the meantime, I'm going to take my dad to lunch after this. And she just stopped into the studio just for a second just to tell me. All right, and so now I'm going to have to, let's get the detail stuff done now. And that was a shadow of that onto the violin, and now I can get all this little stuff done here. Let me turn it sideways here because I want to get the bow in here. So I'm going to take this and see how I can wipe out. I'm just going to wipe out with my large brush. I'm taking it sideways, and I'm just re-wetting. Now, if you're using some papers like an Arches, sometimes it sucks in them so much that it's, depending on what colors you use, it's hard to, again, bring it out of the paper. But Stonehenge sits more on top, and since Stonehenge is a little bit more difficult to put masking fluid on because it rips the paper a little bit more, I could put tape there and cut it, but I find it to be just as easy and actually a better looking surface if I just wipe out. Let's see, I just wipe it out and make it light again. this up. So just put this little light bow here. So you just pull it right out. So there we have the bow. Now there was a part that was a little too wet and so to go into the bow, but I can take that out later. No big deal. And again, this also gives me a soft edge compared to having it be a hard edge. A hard edge is, you know, too hard. Again, I'm looking for soft edges. I can put it dark on one side here. Just pull this out. You just have to watch this because it's going to keep on bleeding in because it's wet right here. And so I'll just keep on bleeding into that area. And just watch for things that are wet and dry and all that kind of stuff. And now let's do her face a little bit. Now we got to get in there and do super detailed stuff. Any other questions here? I mean, I haven't looked up for a while. If you have any questions, just let me know. So now let's go into her face and really like basically putting makeup on her. And so I'll do her eyelashes. I'm just going to make them black with maybe a little bit of red in it just to get the kind of a darkish color. Getting close to it now. And now I'm drawing. I'm basically drawing. This is where you look at the photograph and really make sure you get the drawing right. And I do want to have it not all hard edge too, and so it's nice to get some soft edges in there too. So what I do is I pull out things and then I can soften it by putting water in, right? Just a little bit of water. Her eyebrow is a little bit darker, so I'm going to make that a little bit darker. And then underneath her eye is going to be more of a shadow. It's going to shadow it a little bit more. And I'm going to pull some paint out for her eyelashes. So, oh look at it, I put my finger right into a wet area. That's why you definitely a lot of times want to wait for things to dry so that you don't put your finger into a big wet wash. So there's her eye, her left eye. It's a little darker against her nose. Do the tip of her nose a little bit to put a little bit of warmth in there. Her nostril, I like to make a little bit warmer. I don't like to make it black. You know, it makes it look dirty. I was always told to make things like the nostrils and stuff, make them look warm, so they don't look dirty. You don't want to make it look like somebody has a dirty nostril. So just something dark but warm, dark and warm. And basically it's like drawing. You know, this is drawing with your brush. You're drawing with your brush. You're getting the darks. Your eyelash on this side. I could go over her nose again, but I think I'm waiting until this stuff dries and then I may go over with another wash of that. Eyebrows a little bit darker. And you're going to do like every individual hair if you want. I mean, that's how detailed you want to get. You can get detailed with this. Put a little bit of dark color in there and just throw that in there. Thanks, Maria. Have a good day yourself. Hope you have fun. Great job on your last sketch, though, of the city. That was really cool. Or the church. Very nice. I still have to do more of that. I gotta get out there and do more plein air sketching. Which, as soon as the weather gets nice, I'm gonna be out there a lot. I'm gonna be doing a lot of practicing. So I got a lot of plein air events to go to this year, which I'm really excited about. I'm trying my new toys that I had gotten. Now we're gonna get dark shadowing underneath her hair here. Throw some hairs going across here. And they may not be exactly like this in the picture, but I'm just making them up a little bit so that, you know, that's the thing you can do when you're when you draw from your imagination, you make things up because you know how things look when they're better. I mean, I did storyboarding for many years, for 30 some years, and everything you draw, you make up. You know, you're just drawing and you're making things up. So you get really good at it, and you just start. You don't really look at the object and try to think, well, I gotta make it look exactly like that. I make it look the way I want it to look, and I do that by just. I was practicing a lot of drawing, and drawing enough that you know exactly what things look like. Now our chin right here, and this is going to be a lot darker, so this hand looks really big for some reason. I have to slim that down, that hand. Looks a little bit big for her. Now the chin guard that she's got her chin on, that's gonna show the shape of her chin. Now I'm going to start with it hard edged, and then I will go softer edge later by wetting it and softening it. So I'm making it pretty dark, and I will make these shadows darker too. I'll soften the edge a little bit and kind of tone this down a little bit. And if you blur an area, that's how you get it to look soft edged, is you blur it. And then it's not so important, that area, and it reads as just what you want it to read. Not that important. And it goes back. And if you ever find that you're working and it's looking too important and you don't know what it is, that's when you soften it and let it bleed and look unfocused. Out of focus looks much better. And then there's a shadow here across there's a little bit of light right here. And you notice how detailed I'm getting now. There is times and places for detail, and you do them in the center of interest area. And on a portrait, it's pretty important to get it looking like, you know, like what a drawing is. And there's a shadow that goes across, and I'm just going to put it across here too. Make the shadow a little bit darker. See how you can go over things and over things and over things? It's no problem. And the reference is there for you to learn, so look at it and use it. It's, you know, sometimes there may be mistakes that it's fooling you with certain things. But most of the time, it's telling you what is where and what you have in your sketch, and so it's good to look at because you need to know what it's showing you. But don't take it as law, like you have to make it exactly like that, because sometimes it does give you, because of the camera bending the image and the lens not being right. Sometimes it'll give you something that doesn't look right, and so that's when you can change it. You can just do whatever you want to change it to make it look right. Here I'm going with just shadowing. And you notice I'm not matching colors to the image, I'm just matching colors to my painting. As long as I've used these colors somewhere else, they'll be fine. They will be absolutely fine. I am going to put some light colors in there too. I'm going to put some opaques just to get some lighting to look lighter. I know it's like a no-no in watercolor to put opaque in there, but sometimes I find it to be very attractive, so I'll do it anyways. Little hair reflections. Now let's give her some on her face. I want to give her some shadowing from her hair on her face with the hairs. That's the funnest thing to do, is to do the shadowing. You know, I love doing shadowing on faces and the hair. Make this a little bit darker. A little shadow there. Like I said, I was going to do this. Hand looks really big. Looks really huge. And actually too light. And this is so light. Look at that hand. I feel like it's a little bit too light right there. So I'm going to put a wash over it a little bit. Just give it a little bit of a wash of darker color. Make it a little bit smaller. I can make a couple of fingers a little bit lighter. Darker. A little bit of shadow across here. I'm almost getting ready to put. I'm going to show you how to get the what do you call it? The lace. The lace. I'm going to show you how to get the lace with the stencil. Almost done. Almost done. Let me get a few more things here, and it's basically details are, to me, are not very fun to watch because it's just basically showing you what is on the photograph. Basically, these lines on the violin. You know, it's nothing to learn really. You just copy what you see. You know, copy what you see on the photograph, and these happen to be just really dark. And why did I make that? Where does that dark come from? I must have put my finger in there. That's the violin. Now I'm going to take my big brush and watch this. I'm going to take a nice dark, turn my paper sideways a little bit, and I'm going to put a dark part of the bow. A little warmth into it. See, when I say warmth, I'm just going into a warm color, and just any color that's warm would be fine. It doesn't have to be a particular exact color. A little dark edge on here. That's what it is in the photograph. And then there's the shadow on the actual bow, or on the violin. And then the little dot I did there, that is not too hard to take off. You take some paper towel. Grab a little paper towel here. I'll just wet it. And then I'll just dab it. And then a lot of times you may have to put some color back into that area. Same thing with this little mess I made with my finger. I'm just going to wet that, put some dark there, and then wash it with a little bit of water beyond it. Let it float into that area. It'll be fine. Alright, let me just make this hand a little bit more precise, and it'll also make it smaller. Little spots there, making it a little bit smaller and also making it blurry. Putting a little dark there is just making it a little bit, I'm making it a little bit harder edge, but I'm also making it smaller. And I can also go back in and then also make it soft edge too. But maybe it doesn't need to be soft edge, we'll see. And that bow is now too white, and then I can just put some color in that. Let's put some shadowing on and put the strings in. The strings I can put in with white or dark. They seem to start out dark. Take my rigger brush, put the strings in. And the string doesn't have to be all the way across. You can do parts of it, and it'll be enough. People tend to think you need to put everything in for the whole string. You can start out thick here. And then I'll do real light lines to go to this part. And then I will put in light on top of the dark. I'm just going to take white. My white's dirty, so I got to put a little bit of water in it and then take my paper towel, dab it, and get it back to white. Just take a little bit of pure white. Also practice these lines on something before you actually go in your painting. I'm not going to practice it because I know I can do this, but a lot of students said just go in there and don't practice these nice straight lines, and they just ruin everything because then there's this big huge gob of paint on there. So spend some time in practice. Practice, practice, practice. You have to practice. Alright, there's some nice lines. Alright, so with the stencil, I'm going to put like a little stencil here to show the lace. And I'm going to take a magic eraser, very well used magic eraser, dip it into my water, and then just squeeze out all, I'm going to squeeze out all the water as much as I can. So now it's all nice and just damp. Take my hand and put it on my paper, or my towel. And then I'm going to just take this right over. I decided to use this one, a kind of a lacy looking stencil. I'll find a good spot that I feel has a lot of, that looks like what that could possibly be on there. And I'm going to shift it right there, and I'm going to just take this and just real lightly rub across it. Not pressing very hard because you're going to release water, and I don't want to release water. I just want to get some of the darks away and back to light to make it look like her dress. And it may turn too white for my liking, but then I can always just put color back into it. This is supposed to be her dress, lace over dress. Pick it up, but don't remove your finger. This finger right here, I'm going to hold on just in case I didn't get enough. There you go. Not too bad. This looks an easy way to get your look of lace. I could make it more like a smaller lace if I had a smaller, you know. Let's go a little bit more down a little bit more. So same area. Just rub it down a little bit farther. Farther over. Alright, there's the lace of her dress. And then, like I said, if you feel like it's too light, if it ends up being too light and it doesn't look like fresh tone, then you wait for it to dry, and then you put, you don't even actually wait for it to dry because it is already dry, because you did it on dry, you didn't add water, you took away the pigment, but you can just take some of the flesh tone that was underneath and then just put that back in there. Flesh tone back into these little areas. Now it can ruin your picture sometimes if you do it wrong and stuff. So definitely another thing you gotta practice. You know, again, with everything you need to practice and try it, and do it on a painting that if it doesn't work out, it's fine. If it's a painting, a portrait that you are doing as a commission, don't start practicing on that. You know, you want to do it on something that you can wreck. All right. So, and you can also put this stencil somewhere else into the picture, just so that you have it somewhere else. That's a good thing to do sometimes too. And I could maybe do it in the background and stuff, but I think I'm going to keep it at this. I think I'm going to look at it again a little bit more later and see. And it's always good to get away from your picture a little bit. And I notice that her smile is not very smiley. She looks like she's frowning, like she really doesn't like what she's doing here. So let's get a little bit more of a smile back in here. There we go. Hope she's happy about playing this in this concert. And a little bit of color on the bow, and we're done. I'm just going to put a little color in here. A little bit of orange. And who knows, I may go back into areas just to see, you know, after I look at it. So I'm going to critique it in my head, you know, later on. I'll come back to it and look at it and see. And you're always going to find something that you feel like, oh, I missed that, or I did this. And that's fine. You know, that's what you want to do. That's why you come back, back to it and see how it looks. I may have to clean this area up a little. It looks a little messy. So how do I clean it up? I would just rub it like this, make it back smooth, and wet it, and then put the color that I want in there. So watch, I can just float some other colors in there to make it a little bit lighter, brighter, softer. It's wet, and so now it's even. So yeah, you can go back into areas. Don't worry about that. That's an easy thing. Now I notice like I kind of like this to be a little bit lighter right here, because look at it in the picture. I like how it kind of goes light there again. So I'm just going to pull that out. So I'm seeing this stuff now as I'm looking back at it. And you can do that too. This is actually kind of good, so you can see how I'm thinking about what I'm looking at. And put a little bit of light back in here. You'll see how you can go back in the area as long as you wet it beyond where you're painting, and then apply color into that so it becomes smooth again. I don't ever not just I'll apply another color on top to smooth it out, make it wet, and watercolor smooths itself out when it's wet, right? So there's no problem there. This eye and this whole area of the face looks way too light, and so I'm just going to go in here, darken that a little bit. Side of her nose can maybe be a little bit darker. All right, before I screw it up, oh wait, one more shadow, and then I'm done. So there's a shadow from the bow across the violin, like this, and so it's a little bit darker. And her chin looks kind of weird. There's a little bump right here on her chin. Alright guys, I'm going to take the tape off, and that's for a nice Sunday morning. And I can head out to lunch with my dad, and we'll all have a great Sunday. Any other questions, just let me know. And if you know anybody that wants to learn how to do a scene like this, send them the email. Send them in your email, send them the link. This will be up here forever, and they can always take a look at it. You can always look at it forever and ever. I do it to help you guys out, and hopefully you'll learn how to do all kinds of fun painting techniques and stuff, like stencils. Alright, there you go guys. Hope you guys have a great Sunday. We'll talk to you on, actually next Thursday I may have to do the paint along on Wednesday, because I may be doing a demonstration, a live demonstration for the Lake Geneva club up there, and so I may have to do that, and so in that case I would have to make my Thursday night on a Wednesday night. So you may see that on a Wednesday night instead of Thursday this week for our paint along.